Welcome to our Performance Edge Weekly Wisdom, where spirit drives performance. Coach Scholl here. Today we are going to discuss the topic of service. How to serve in order to make your life a masterpiece. So we'll focus specifically in this video on why service is a spiritual imperative of your life that is not exclusive to only a few. So in this video, I'll share with you first the ingredient of service that make the greatest of all time in any field you can think of, in any culture. And I'll share that with you, so stay tuned. Second, you'll understand why the ultimate winning mindset in performance is anchored into finding out in each moment how to be service. And third, as a spirit performance coach, I will share with you why developing the skill to be of service and in service is a spiritual imperative that results in a life of legacy, that results in a life of mastery, and that results in a life of fulfillment. So by the end of this video, not only you will understand why to be of service is a must, and most importantly, you will comprehend why to be of service is a governing principle that maintains life itself. And that's a governing principle of a higher order. You ready? Let's jump in. With Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. birthday this week, it is a good reminder for me to talk about the topic of service, not necessarily from a civil right or society perspective, but from a performance perspective and legacy perspective. And we're going to take even further to show you why to be in service and why to be of service is a critical spiritual imperative. And more importantly, I will show you why that understanding leads to higher performance. And all the key indicators of performance, of progress, and outstanding legacies are anchored into service. And I'll show you where and how. So here in this video, I'm going to do my part to help clarify in this effort. So first, not only you are going to understand why anyone you can think of, in whatever field you are in, that you consider the greatest of all time, in any culture, they had a secret drive of service. Whether they knew it or not, and I'm going to show you how and why. The second thing you will see in this video is from a performance perspective and pragmatic perspective, why the ultimate winning mindset is rooted into developing the edge to be of service. And third, I will show you as a spirit performance coach why mastery in any field equates to developing the skill of learning to be in service. Yes, you ready? Let's get started. I need you to think about anyone that you consider a master in any field. Let's to just ground it. Let's think about any in leadership, in business, in art, in sport, anyone that you consider the greatest of all time. I need you to think about it. You got one? Okay, let's ground this. Where should we start? Let's think about a couple of areas. Just for today, we'll choose a couple of them, right? Some you might be familiar with and some you might not be with all of them. But let's just pick. Let's go around. So let's look at science and technology. Galileo, right? An astronomer, physicist, engineer, right? Sometimes described as a polymath. He's been called the father of, observational astronomy. Sir Isaac Newton, a polymath also, active as a mathematician, a physicist, an astronomer, an alchemist, theologian, right? Next, let's look at Marie Curie, right? Physicist, chemist. She conducted pioneering research on radioactivity. She was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize. the first person to win a Nobel Prize twice, and the only person to win a Nobel Prize in 2 scientific fields. Next, Albert Einstein, theoretical physicist who is widely held to be one of the greatest and most influential scientists of all time. He's best known for developing the theory of relativity. Sheikh Anta Diop, historian, anthropologist, physicist, politician who studied human race origin and how they all connected and developed. Next, Nikola Tesla, inventor, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, and futurist, best known for his contribution to the design of a modern alternating AC current electric supply system. Next, Thomas Edison developed many devices in fields such as electric power generation, mass communication, sound recording, and motion pictures, right? Most of his inventions include phonograph, motion camera, early vision of electric light bulb, right? Had a lot of impact on the modern industrial world. Next, can think of Gordon Moore, engineer, co-founder of Intel Corporation, proposed Moore laws, which makes the observation that the number of transistors in an integrated circuit double every 2 years. Made a lot of leap and bound because of that law. Now let's move on to, I can go on with science, technology, but let's move on into business. Andrew Carnegie, industrialist, philanthropist. Carnegie, led the expansion of American steel industry in the late 19th century and became one of the richest Americans in history. Well, next, Steve Jobs, businessman, inventor, and investor best known for co-founding Apple Inc., founder of Next and chairman of Pixar, right? He was a pioneer of a personal computer revolution, right, in the 70s and 80s, right, along with his early business partner, Steve Wozniak. Now, let's look at some of the greatest of all time in social causes. Mother Teresa, right, founded Missionary of Charities, right, a religious congregation which grew to have over 4,500 nuns across 133 countries. Who else? Social causes. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., right, Baptist minister, activist, and political philosopher who was one of the most prominent leaders in the civil rights movement from 1955 until his assassination in 1968. Next, Nelson Mandela, South African anti-apartheid activist and politician who served as the first African of South Africa from 94 to 99, right? So now I can go on and on, Gandhi and more, but let's just look at some of the greatest of all time. Let's think about sport. In sport, one of my favorite I can think of, let's think about soccer, right, since it's worldwide. Edson Arantes do Nascimentos, also known as Pele, born professional footballer, right, who played as a forward, widely regarded as one of the greatest players of all time. He was among the most successful and popular sport figure of the 20th century. Next, Diego Armando Maradona, professional football player as well, and manager, widely regarded as one of the greatest players in the history of sport as well. Now, let's move on to basketball, for example. Basketball, Michael Jordan, right? He played 15 seasons in the NBA, right? And, from 1984 to 2003, right? Winning 6 NBA titles. Kobe Bryant, right? From the Lakers, who just passed. And unfortunately, I can't go and on. Now, NFL, Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time. Now let's think about MLB. Got Baby Ruth, regarded as one of the greatest sport heroes in American culture, and is considered by many to be the greatest baseball player of all time. Next, Jackie Robinson, a player who became the first African American who played in the major league, right, in the modern era. Now let's look at different field in classical. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was a prolific and influential composer of classical period, right, despite his short life, right? 800 works of virtually every genre of his time. Now let's look at something even closer to us. Prince Rogers Nelson. Prince, he played so many instruments, right? Singer, songwriter, musician, record producer, dancer, and actor. Recipient of numerous awards and nominations, regarded as one of the greatest musicians of his generation. Well, I could go on and on, but I hope we have enough example now. I think you will agree relatively that all these people could be considered the greatest of our times in their field. Would you agree? I want to make sure that we agree on that part. So if you look at all these key public figures, one thing that they all had in common is this: the commitment to give all of themselves to their cause, which is the root of excellence. Again, I'm going to repeat it. They all have one thing in common: to give the full of themselves to their cause. And guess what it is? It's love. Yes, it's love. Giving yourself fully to serve something bigger than themselves. That's a true meaning of love. To be of service, in real meaning, is the act of love. Not lust love, but love with big L. It's that same act of service or love that a parent, a mother, father, a grandparent demonstrate when it comes to their kids, grandkids. They are willing to give and exchange their lives in some instances in order for their children to continue living. That is even portrayed in different religions, but concretely, whether these greatest of all time I mentioned to you, their dedication and commitment to their cause, to give all of themselves, is an act of service. Which act is it? Is to give the very best of themselves for that cause. Not half of themselves, not a quarter of themselves, but every inch of themselves was to put all of themselves in their cause. I'm sure you can easily remember stories, whether in sport, right? Tom Brady regiment of training, or Michael Jordan, right? How training was integrated in their whole life, their family and everything. Or Thomas Edison, who was so committed for light bulb, right? Some people might call it obsession, regardless of how you see it. My point here is to show you that these people, the greatest of all time, whether or not they knew it or not, or whatever their deep motive was, they gave all of themselves to their causes. They serve to advance what they believe in. Not 30%, but 200% of their spirit in that cause. Can you see that? Now let's look at the second point. Why, from a performance perspective, why the ultimate winning mindset is anchored into finding out in each moment how to be of service. What do I mean by this? This is a practical performance outcome, and let's focus on the main point. What I'm saying is why being of service in practice leads to the ultimate winning mindset people are looking for. Yes, it might seem counterintuitive, but I want to give you a quote that will help you codify the essence of my second point, that is pragmatic one about service. It's a quote from Zig Ziglar, and if you're in business development, you probably heard of him. But his famous quote was this: if you help enough people to get what they want, you will end up getting what you want. Again, Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough people to get what they want, you will end up getting what you want. Let's simply look at the essence of that wisdom. When you think about it, what is an entrepreneur, for example, as an example? It's what do business do ultimately? They solve the problem in exchange of money. Pretty simple, isn't it? An entrepreneur solve a problem in exchange of money. Pretty simple, isn't it? So they render a service that resolves people's problem in exchange of money. And the bigger and the more you resolve people's problems, for the more you receive more money in exchange, right? And that's what entrepreneurship is, right? And even further, let's look at the example. Even in sport, we talk about even sport. Nowadays, contemporary, let's look at LeBron James, all right, or this athlete that get all this big contract, right? Because they inspire and they bring more tickets into the stadium. By doing that, they are serving more people. In return, they are getting more money. Pretty straightforward, right? But so the idea here is to be tuned into what people need, so you can serve that. And that is something that is dynamic, because you want to develop, that's why you want to develop on finding out in each moment what that is. So whether it's deliberate or not, but the one that are being valued the most are because they bring value into enough people's lives. So I know it might seem obvious or counterintuitive on the other side, but the point I'm making here is this second argument is that if you develop that as a skill, again, if you develop that as a skill, finding out what people need, how to serve that as a second nature, how much value can you add to the world? How much legacy will you be able to build? So again, my point here is to reiterate the fact that to be of service is a practical reality. That is something you need to learn. It's something you need to train. And I admit it might seem counterintuitive, but it's important to see the pragmatic side of service. And yes, the challenge is to strike that balance, right? As you serve, you don't want to lose yourself, right? And that's the real name of a game, finding that balance, right? So I hope you can see that second point clearly now, right? Now let's pivot to the third point I talk about, the aspect of service. That is my favorite. As a spirit performance coach, why to be of service is a spiritual imperative that sustains life itself and that sustains higher order. Let's take a step back and let's look at nature. And as you can see, I'm here in nature. That's why I love nature, right? In life, in the universe, nature is a balance through animating force that sustains life itself. The animating principle that allows balance and harmony in the universe is service. Pretty simple. And you will see it also what is said, love. Love with big L. And as a spirit performance coach, let's look at it from first an objective scientific lens. Let's look at nature. The different kingdom we have, right? We know of, right, mineral kingdoms, right? The rocks, earth. We got the vegetable kingdoms, right? We got the animal kingdom, then the human kingdom, right? Let's look at just the food chain. You got what? Stardust, the mineral, and the sunshine, right? That nourish and serve the plant. So the mineral and the sun are serving the plant. The mineral and the sun are serving the grass. Then you have the herbivore kingdoms, right? The animal, for example, the deer, rabbit, eating that grass. So we could say that the grass is serving the rabbit. And then you got what? The carnivore kingdoms, or animals, right? The lion eating the deer or the rabbit. So you could say the deer or rabbit serving the lion. And you have a human on top of that food chain. But what is important to notice here is that they all go back to dust, to the ground, and back again into life through that perpetual balance. serving each other for the greater whole. So each thing is playing two roles. At the same time, it is complete by being one, but also it is incomplete as a multiplicity, so it can complete the whole. All in one and one in all. So if you can see the point, the animating principle that allows balance and harmony in the universe is service. Each element is serving each other for a greater balance. Even us, right? Baby, you got parents, give their lives to babies, right? The old has to make space for the new. The simple example is the acorn has to disappear and serve so that the oak tree can come to life and produce more acorn again. So it's that perpetual balance that sustains life. So yes, so the animating principle that allows balance and harmony in the universe is service, because each element is serving each other for greater balance, right? Because each element is incomplete and completing each other so that greater balance is done. So I'm going to take this to the next level now. In the realm of the invisible, what our ancient traditions knew, and that's basically the realm of a quantum door, bridging the invisible with the visible. That's where spirit drives performance. So everything that exists has a role to play, or it's going to disappear. Right? You probably heard what is not being used cease to exist. What is not being of service cease to exist. Everything in nature has a role to play. Everything in nature has a purpose. The limitation is that we don't see it sometimes. And that role can change depending on the context. And here is a power. The biggest secret, you ready? The greatest of all time, the skill they have above everyone else, is their abilities to tune in into what their role is at each moment. The greatest of all time, they know their role in a moment, in each context. That's what makes them the greatest. They play their role to the optimal, where they're needed and when they're needed. That's what makes them the most valuable for their cause. That's why you probably heard the saying that the two greatest days in someone's life is the day you are born and the day you find your purpose. It's somehow truth, but the truth is that purpose can evolve, and it's not necessarily static. So in other words, your purpose as a father, for example, is not exactly the same in all circumstances, because you can be a brother or a son. You can have different roles and purposes, right? Even though they could have the same vector, right? So I just want to make the point that if you have heard that, but the connection of service goes beyond. And that's what true love with big L is. It really means since everything is incomplete and each thing is acting to complete each other for a greater whole, that's what creates balance in the universe at all levels. That's what ultimately some religion use as a metaphor. When you die for a greater cause, you are acting for a greater whole. Dying on the cross, right? Dying for afterlife. And I'm not putting a judgment here, but I'm just trying to bring you to all the perspective, codifying the principles of service and love and purpose, how really it is a scientific and pragmatic beyond all the myth, right? And even beyond faith, it's really, it's a fact. Because if you're able to see that what is not being of service ceases to exist, you can see that everything in nature has a role to play. It has a purpose. And like I shared, it's just the limitation is that we just don't see it sometimes. And that role can change depending on the context. And yes, so I can keep going on and on. But I want to make sure that there is closure in this video. And I want to really reiterate the higher order understanding, right? So I can, if you want to know more, even go deeper, right, and continue this conversation with me, please sign up to our brand new community, Free Souls, and you'll get access to more tips and relevant answers to your real problems. The link is comments below. And also, if you have any issue, right, you want me to really help you with as a spiritual performance coach to just discuss, you can submit that in the comments below, or you can request specific video topics, by, just going and signing up at www.thequantumdo.com/video, right? And before I leave you today, I really just want to bring this back to closure, because this is really an important topic, and I really want to bring it back to closure, right? So the animating principle that allows balance and harmony in the universe is pretty simple. It is service. Each element is serving each other for a greater balance. As we have reviewed, to make your life a masterpiece, like the greatest of all time, in any field, as we looked at, right? In all culture, they have a secret advantage, which is the first ingredient to their success, whether they know it or not. It's a commitment and love to give a full of themselves into their cause, to give a full of themselves into their craft, to give a full of themselves in their art. And second, what we reviewed, that's important, is that from a performance perspective and pragmatic perspective, why the ultimate winning mindset of being of service is a pragmatic skill to learn. And it is anchored to finding out in each moment, how to be of service. Because as you serve something greater than yourself, you get elevated as well per extension. And third, what we review that's important, as a spirit performance coach, I share with you why developing the skill to be in service is a spiritual imperative that results in a life of legacy, in a life of mastery, in a life of fulfillment. So I hope this serves you, and I want to be of service. So don't forget, failure is a necessary prerequisite to human excellence. And I hope you find your way to serve and to be deliberate in finding that place, how to be of service. With that, I hope this serves you. Till next time, live your truth.